Welcome back to Edgemont UMC's vlog series on anxiety. I'm Pastor Henry. We're glad you have joined us again as we're continuing to talk about the ways that we can deal with the anxious feelings that come up during this time that we're in that seems to produce so much anxiety for so many reasons. We started by looking at some of the undercurrents of anxiety, what can be going on internally, and we've now are in our second week of talking about practices, because we're talking about practice for any Allen Iverson fans that are out there. These are things that we can do that can help us deal with our anxiety, can help us cope with it, but not just cope, even find joy in the middle of anxious times. Last week we talked about what prayer and meditation can do. Today we're going to be talking about something that one of our worship leaders talked about in our service when we did a service talking about anxiety. She talked about her own journey in dealing with her anxiety, and one of the ways she deals with it is gratitude. We're going to link both that service and a blog that she wrote about that in our description of this video. If you remember last week, we read Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 was our key verse. And says, "Do not be anxious in anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Thanksgiving, gratitude. In the middle of that, Paul's giving us a second strategy to deal with being anxious, and that is using gratitude, thanksgiving, being thankful for what we can be in the middle of whatever situation we have. In another verse that Paul gives us, 1 Thessalonians 5, 16 through 18, Paul was a big fan of giving lists for how we can live well, live our lives as Christians well. And this was another one of those. And in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 through 18, he says, "Rejoice always, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." We can have powerful patterns of life when we bring gratitude into our regular practices. And I'm saying that word practice because that's very, very important. It's got to be a practice of gratitude. This is something Brene Brown highlighted in her book that we've been talking about, The Gifts of Imperfection. In that book, she gives 10 guideposts for wholehearted living. Guidepost 4 is cultivating gratitude and joy, and this is what she had to say. "One of the most profound changes in my life happened when I got my head around the relationship between gratitude and joy. I have always thought that joyful people were grateful people. I mean, why wouldn't they be? They have all of that goodness to be grateful for. But after spending countless hours collecting stories about joy and gratitude, 3 powerful patterns emerged. Without exception, every person I interviewed who described living a joyful life or who described themselves as joyful actively practiced gratitude and attributed their joyfulness to their gratitude practice. Both joy and gratitude were described as spiritual practices that were bound to a belief in human interconnectedness and a power greater than us. People were quick to point out the difference between happiness and joy as the difference between a human emotion that's connected to circumstances and a spiritual way of engaging the world that's connected to practicing gratitude." Again, when we practice gratitude, it begins to change. But it has to be a practice. She goes on to give a great example of that in her book, talking about the difference between a practice of gratitude and an attitude of gratitude. And I think it's one that a lot of us can relate to. She talked about having an attitude of yoga, a yoga attitude. She believed in everything that yoga did, in the way that you can center, in the way that it can help both your mind and your body. She has the yoga mat. She has the yoga clothes. She looks like all that. And yet at the writing of that book, and it's about 10 years old now, so I'm sure she has by this point, she said she hadn't actually practiced yoga. She just had all the stuff. It's the same thing with gratitude. If we aren't willing to practice it, if we're not willing to make an actual habit that we engage in, having an attitude, maybe we'll get there, but a practice will help us build that into where it's not just an attitude, it's a lifestyle, it's a pattern of being grateful. There are a lot of different things that you can do, a lot of ways that you can build gratitude. Some people have a gratitude jar. They choose to have a jar and they write down what they're grateful for and they put that in there. And then every night they put something in there they're grateful for. And then they fill it up and then they go back through and look through it and then start all over. Other people, maybe at a meal or right before bed, a lot of families can do this. The parents and the kids will take a minute and say, hey, what's one thing I'm grateful for today? And they have to do that every night before they go to bed. Something that was very helpful for me in my own life for beginning a gratitude practice is something called the 5-minute journal. And this is a journal that helps you get in a regular routine of building a gratitude practice into your life. And it's called the 5-minute journal because if you do this, it only takes about 5 minutes a day. Each day you'll turn to, and you've got a morning and an evening session. And in the morning, you have a quote, and you say, I am grateful for. What would make today great? And daily affirmation, I am, and give yourself an affirmation. You do that every morning, and then every evening, you say 3 amazing things that happened today. And then one, because you have to be a little reflective in the middle of all of this, how could I have made today even better? And it takes 5 minutes a day. This is a wonderful little journal. You can look it up online and find it at their website. You can also, if you're more technology inclined, they have an app that you can buy in the App Store as well as I think the Android store, depending on what phone you have. That is a very simple way to do that. And for me, paying for those has been one of those ways that kind of incentivized me to use it. I'm saying this is so important for my life that I'm willing to put my money towards building a habit. You could also, if you want, you could just take the prayer journal that we made last week and you had a column of the things that are making you anxious, but then just do another column, things that I am grateful for. And what we find as we begin to practice gratitude, we are seeing how much we have in our lives that we can be joyful for. It may just be simple things like I am grateful for the fact that coffee exists. I'm grateful that I have a dog or a cat. I'm grateful for this family member or this friend. I'm grateful that I woke up in the morning. But we build this idea of being thankful, of being grateful, gratitude into the fiber of our being. And so when we feel like we're getting anxious, we can come to our jar, We can come to our journal. We can look on our phone and see the different things that we have been grateful for, that we are giving thanks for. And that can kind of help break up that anxiety storm that we are in. So I encourage you over the next week, investigate some of these different ways. If you're like my wife, you could jump onto Pinterest right now and find like 75 different ideas for a way to build gratitude in your life. But choose one of these and try it out for a week. I guarantee you that you will find yourself in a better place and have a great way to deal with anxiety. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching our video. I hope that you will like our video, that you'll feel free to share this video so we can spread the word about what we're doing here at Edgemont. And please subscribe to our channel and click that little bell to get notifications when we upload a new video. Thanks.